All right, check the mic. We're live with our instant reaction to Week 5. It wasn't a great slate of games in the 1 o'clock hour, but some craziness in the 4 o'clock hour here, Sam. Let's start with that. Tampa Bay, 38-35 over the Seattle Seahawks. A fun battle of 3-1 teams. Bucs moved to 4-1. Seattle 3-2. Just a good old-fashioned shootout between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. The class of 2018 representing.
Yeah, when you take two quarterbacks, drafted in the top 5 or whatever it was, and just let them slug it out, that's what you're going to get.
That's what you get, yeah.
Kind of crazy. I mean, it's not. First of all, it's nuts to think that those two guys were both sitting on the Panthers roster a couple of years ago, and neither one of them apparently was the answer. Baker has been playing well for a while now, and Darnold now with this Minnesota kind of resuscitation last year, and then what he's doing with Seattle this year. I mean, they are both completely different quarterbacks than they were earlier in their careers. Baker's has been a lot more good and bad. Darnold's has been largely bad, and then the most recent resurgence. But, dude, both guys were just out there absolutely slinging it in this game, making crazy plays, making plays under pressure, dropping dimes all over the place. Just a nuts performance.
At what point, Darnold ended up throwing an interception, which was the difference in the game. Ball thrown, it skipped off of Logan Hall's helmet into the arms. Great catch by Levante David after that, by the way. That put the Bucs into game-winning field goal range. But at one point, Darnold and Baker had combined 56 of 65. 56 completions, 65 attempts for 711 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no picks. I think there's an extra 1 for 2 in there. But just an impressive back and forth, including the way they did it, right? Like Darnold had the go-ahead touchdown on a 4th and 2 scramble drill, which was wonderful, beautiful play. Baker Mayfield's like, I don't care. Comes right back with his own touchdown on the scramble drill to tie it, and then it was the interception that was the difference in the game. What an incredible old-school Big 12 type of game. It was like Baker and Mahomes back in the day.
Yeah, it really was. And even the interception, okay, it's a bad play by Darnold, but it's under pressure. He's kind of hit as he thrown. It bounces off the helmet of a lineman. It required a lot of weird things to happen for it to be intercepted.
All right, we got to discuss what just happened in Arizona. The Tennessee Titans get their first win, 22-21. I mean, it was a 21-3 game pretty early, 21-6. This is one of the worst bad beats of all time. And as I always say, one man's bad beat is another man's good beat. So somebody took the Titans and, was feeling pretty good about this. But Arizona favored by about a touchdown and looked like they had this game in hand. And then what happened, Sam? Break it all down for us.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the idea that the Cardinals lost this game is absolutely ridiculous given how the game was going. The Cardinals were way the better side. And, at the end of it all, some of the stats are going to actually end up shaking out quite close because, late bomb to Calvin Ridley, et cetera. But, the Cardinals were absolutely dominating this game. They get a massive run from Amari DiMarcado, who, is third-choice running back, essentially. He's now in there as one of the running backs in this stable, in this committee, because of all the injuries. Breaks it, goes 80 yards, and then allegedly drops the ball over or before the goal line, and that's the classic Deshaun Jackson turnover, touchback instead of a touchdown thing. Now, look, anyone that's listened to us before knows I hate that play more than anybody else. It is utterly, inexcusably, ridiculously stupid. In this particular case, though, I don't think he lost it before he broke the plane. I'm amazed that they turned that over on review because the ball's still clearly in his hand as it breaks the plane of the goal line. Yes, he's busy pushing it forward and eventually tossing it loose at the time, but it's in his control as it breaks the plane. I am staggered that they overturned that on replay.
I think you're right. I thought they would actually have it. By the way, guy in the chat, I need a quick aside from Bucs fans here. We already talked about the Bucs and their great win moving to 4-1. I read all your comments, Bucs fans, and you guys just drop in our videos and they picked against the Bucs again. Well, I didn't. I picked the Bucs this week. I'm off to a good week here, Sam. I'm coming back in our picks. So before you guys just jump to conclusions, some of us picked the Bucs this week and we won. And so this Titans game, it should have been 28-3 or 28-6. By the way, every game in football was 28-3 at some point this weekend. It's science. Belichick was down 28-3. Florida State, Miami. One of the games here today, just now, just the way it is. Lions, Bengals. Anyway, then you've got Cam Ward throwing an interception in a comeback attempt, and the Rabbit fumbles it. The Rabbit fumbles the ball, bouncing around everywhere into the end zone. That's the Titans' second touchdown, which gets them within a score. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, 14 points of utterly ridiculous. The swing between the touchdown and touchback, when, again, I hate that it's inexcusably stupid from DeMercado. I do, however, think he got screwed in that technically that should have been a touchdown, in my opinion. And then the interception turning into a Titans touchdown, unbelievable. Like, I mean, he caught the ball, took 3 steps, fell over, lost the ball on the ground, and then like 3 different Cardinals players were unable to fall on the football, and somehow it bounces its way into the end zone as they're fumbling for it, and a Titans player is able to jump on the top of it for a touchdown for them. And then that's not even, they got a turnover because the Cardinals, like, some guy stands up, starts pointing out stuff, and the ball's just snapped, like bashes Kyler Murray in the face, and a Titans guy just scoops it up. Like, the stuff that had to happen for Tennessee to win this game is insane.
Scott Van Pelt's going to have an hour and a half Bad Beats show, just recap on that game alone. You're right. The early snap turnover, then the Rabbits fumble interception, and the drop at the goal line, like a 14-point swing, 17-point swing, just crazy. Anyway, as always, we're going to break it all down. There's a lot of time on that game for the instant reaction. We're going to break it all down tomorrow, though, 7 a.m. We'll get into what it means for the Titans, for the Cardinals, and every game and every team. Back to the 1 o'clock window. What do we have? Let's start early. Minnesota Vikings 21-17 in London, not in Dublin. Minnesota, they can come home now. Yeah, the 9:30 window. Get up early on a Sunday. 21-17, Vikings moved to 3-2. Kind of a heartbreaker for the Browns in Dylan Gabriel's first outing. They tried to slow the ball down, run it, and keep it close, and they did. But it was old school Kevin O'Connell offense. Carson Wentz with the game-winning touchdown to Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Dylan Gabriel is maybe the biggest story from the game. Obviously, we got his debut. He comes in for Joe Flacco this week. He's in London. He's doing it away from home in a weird environment. He played pretty well. I mean, obviously, Stefanski, I think, did a pretty good job of simplifying the offense, making it easy enough for him to execute. But that's not an easy defense to go up against and even know where you should be putting the ball. And he had a lot of good passes in there. Him and David Njoku in particular had a really nice connection. He hit him like 2 or 3 times on very nice passes. And, there was a couple of mistakes in there as well. But I think he played pretty well, especially when you consider the degree of opposition they were going up against. And then, Minnesota was struggling. Like, they lost even more offensive linemen in the game. This one voluntarily, from the sounds of it. Christian Darrisaw reached some sort of magic snap count threshold, and they pulled him from the game. So suddenly you're dealing with like backups everywhere on that offensive line. And weirdly, that seemed to simplify everything for them. Like, every snap, Myles Garrett then got a chip from a tight end. They just got the ball out quickly. And then Wentz just marched down the field, scored a touchdown to Jordan Addison. And there we go. There's our win.
Yeah, I think you got to hand it to Minnesota for finding a way to pull it off. They should be a better team. They're dealing with backup quarterback Carson Wentz. He was better, I think, this week than last week as far as avoiding those negative plays, even against a Browns team with that fierce defensive front. But Minnesota, finding a way to get the ball to Justin Jefferson again and create some big plays. Very impressed again. We'll talk a lot tomorrow, I think, about the Browns rookie class. Harold Fannin with another touchdown. Yeah. Quinshon Judkins. They ran the entire offense through him, and I thought they did a great job with that until the very end. So still more encouraging things for the Browns in their youth. Houston Texans 44-10 over the Baltimore Ravens. Another get-right spot. They are the get-right defense, man, for everybody. I almost want to go back. We'll see what happens because the Chiefs play tomorrow night. Do I go back and undo my Chiefs takes from last week? Mahomes had his first 4-touchdown game in forever. Well, C.J. Stroud had 4 touchdowns and 4 incompletions against this Ravens defense, which is now allowing 35 points per game. It just continues to get worse in Baltimore. Texans get the win to go to 2-3. Baltimore now 1-4 with Cooper Rush getting the start here today for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like we're talking about 2 different things, though, with the Ravens defense. Like, it was playing badly from the get-go this season. So you've got the defense was already underperforming and not doing well. However, the injury list that they had coming into this game, if they had been the best defense in the NFL heading into this game, it still wouldn't have shocked me that they gave up, 40 points and looked terrible. When we read out their injury report on the show midweek, and you're like, like it's everybody, right?
Yeah.
And almost all of them didn't play. It's not even like, half those guys came back and it wasn't as bad as it looked. No, like it was every bit as bad as it looked. They're missing. I mean, we already, Matabike is already down for the year with his neck injury. Then you take away all-pro Roquan Smith, all-pro Kyle Hamilton. They're down 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks. Like, there's no way that this defense was going to be able to hold up against even an offense with as big a weakness as Houston's offensive line. I mean, as much as the offensive line is a problem, you still got really good receivers. You still got CJ Stroud. You still got running backs that can punish you. It's basically a backup defense. And we've seen, we know from preseason that second-string units simply do not hang with first-string units in the NFL.
Stroud he did have an excellent game, 99.3 ESPN QBR. If you're not familiar with that scale, 0 to 100. 100's not necessarily perfect, but as good as you can get. So it's the number one mark, I think, of this entire season for Stroud. 23 of 27 for 244. ESPN's QBR loves a good scramble as well. A 30-yard run in there for Stroud, almost got it into the end zone. And they did a really nice job in the red zone, moving the ball around and taking advantage of the depleted Ravens defense. So an important one for the Texans. So their season's, back on track while the Ravens remain derailed as they await Lamar Jackson's return in a couple weeks here. Let's go Carolina Panthers 27-24 over the Dolphins. This was a wild one, and then a boring one, and then a wild one again. It was 17-0 Dolphins early on. 17-0 Carolina chipped away. Then the teams traded about 8 straight punts in the second half before they started trading touchdowns. Miami took the lead. I can't say the right names. Miami took the lead on a pass to Jalen Waddle for a long touchdown, and then Bryce Young with the game winner to rookie Mitchell Evans, 4-yarder, 27-24, with exciting announcer Eric Collins on the call here, going nuts in Gus Johnson style fashion here.
Yeah, it looked like a beatdown, and then Carolina's defense actually got itself together, slowed down Miami's offense, stopped it effectively, and then Carolina's offense just couldn't quite get enough. Like, they got back to within a score, and they couldn't get that last touchdown to finally take the lead, or the last score to finally get in front, even as their defense was doing a really good job. So as you said, both teams just sort of stalled in this limbo, and then eventually they did get that go-ahead score. Rico Dowdle had a fantastic game. I mean, he ended up being sort of thrust into the alpha running back position in this offense and went off for 200 yards. Incredible running after contact. Looked great. Yeah,
Dowdle was great. We got to get that Dowdle call from Collins. We got to get that on the show. It was Gus Johnson, Beignet style. Dowdle! All right. Good win for Carolina. They're 2-3. Miami now, what are they? 1-4. Keeping track of everybody's record. How about the Denver Broncos getting the win over the Philadelphia Eagles? So this was my own personal problem here, Sam, because I got volume on from both games, and you try to hear the crescendos, right? You hear the crescendos so you know which screen to look at. There was no crescendos in this game. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo sleepwalking through this thing like it's the Ryder Cup, trying to have like a respectful call. Meanwhile, the Broncos are coming down, coming back from 17-3, and it's like, oh, there's a touchdown. It's 17-16.
Meanwhile,
Broncos are going to line up for 2 here. Come on, guys, bring it.
Meanwhile, like every 2 seconds, you're like, oh, there must be a huge play in the Miami-Carolina game. No, it's just a 5-yard catch that the announcer's losing his mind
my
over.
brain was just all scattered over, going back and forth. But, man, what an impressive effort from the Broncos to come back. I mean, there's going to be a million questions, I think, from Philadelphia and their offense again. But Denver's defense, ton of big plays. 2.5 sacks for Nick Bonito. Again, that's 3 tackles of the quarterback. And Bo Nix making some big throws, some big plays with the game on the line here for Denver.
Yeah, they did a great job to come back. Philadelphia did the thing again, though. They just stopped scoring, stopped moving the ball for like a significant portion of the game. Devontae Smith was barbecuing Riley Moss for most of this game. A.J. Brown got a couple against Patrick Surtain. Even Saquon Barkley had a nice run at some point, but they just stopped. They were going well, had the big lead, and then just click, it stopped working again. This has happened for most of Philadelphia's games so far this season, where it's not even been close to a full game's worth of production from the offense. There have been giant, barren, dry spells during the course of every one of these games, and Denver took advantage of that. Once Philadelphia stopped scoring, in the space of a few minutes late in the game, Denver went, all right, we're just going to erase, a 2-score lead and get right back in this. Sean Payton did an interesting wrinkle on the 2-point, when do you go for it stuff. He went for it to take the lead instead of tie it up with the second of the touchdowns that went in. And that really, that framed the rest of the game.
With a lot of time left, by the way.
Yeah, like 7 minutes left or something, right?
Yeah, whatever it was. And it was interesting. So this was to go up 18-17, and it just puts the Broncos ahead. If they're down, they still have at least one more possession. Maybe you sneak a second one, depending on how quickly they go. So it's not a massive deal. But if you go ahead, it's kind of like the other idea. Like if you're going to be down 14, you go up 2. It just increases your win probability. It worked out great for Denver because once you start making stops, Philly's like, oh, shoot, it's not a tie game anymore. We can't play for overtime. It changes the whole dynamic.
Well, yeah, and it throws all the pressure on an offense that had stalled and was no longer able to make plays. Like you suddenly, if they just kicked the extra point, tied the game up, and there's 7.5 minutes left, Philadelphia's feeling okay, right? They're like, all right, it's not great. Our lead's been erased, but it's still a tied football game. All we need is one, drive to win the game. We're good. Instead, you go for 2, you take the lead, and suddenly this offense is completely stalled out in the last, 15 minutes. Is like, oh man, we need points. Like we need to get this thing together now and find points against, one of the league's best defenses and one of the league's best pass rushes. And they couldn't do it. I think whether or not it was completely, specific to this game, I think it was a really, really smart and aggressive move by Payton to just lump all that pressure back on a unit that was already struggling.
We'll break it all down again tomorrow. Some questions in the chat that are fair ones. If the Eagles were winning the whole time, how does Saquon Barkley end up with only 6 carries? Jalen Hurts, 38 passes. Weird game flow. Is almost like the Eagles were saying, oh, you think we can't pass? Let's prove it to you. And then they didn't prove it. And we're stuck on 17 points for a while. So we'll talk about it all tomorrow. A couple other ones to just touch on quickly. Dallas Cowboys, dominant win against the New York Jets, ended up 37-22. Wasn't even that close. Another impressive all-around effort from the Cowboys offense. And the take I'm going to unveil tomorrow, with all the offensive line issues around the league with backups, the Cowboys are doing the very best job of dealing with backups across the board. And their offense hasn't slowed down at all. And they finally got some good play from their defense, albeit against, a Jets offense.
Yeah, no, their offenses look pretty good despite, that's a bad looking offensive line on paper. And it's the one group, as you said, throughout the NFL where they're deep into the bench and there's not a discernible difference between the starters and the backups when it comes to the offensive line, at least in terms of how much it's affecting like the overall output. It's definitely worth saying like the Jets pass rush has not been as formidable as it has been in the past. They've never gotten that back since the last couple of years, but yeah, they've done a great job of papering over that.
And run game too, you know what I mean? Like they've just moved the ball offensively despite the offensive line. So Dallas now 2-2-1. Got to keep up with their record here. New Orleans Saints got their first win, 26-14 over the Giants. It was a pretty good back and forth game. Giants got up early. Saints kept fighting back, and then it was Brian Brzee forcing the fumble on our guy, Cam Scattaboo, that ended up being not necessarily the difference in the game, but put the Saints up 2 scores, and the Giants just couldn't overcome that. Bunch of failed fourth downs for the Giants in Jackson Dart's second start here.
Yeah, they got a couple of big turnovers in the game that kind of made the difference, but it was a back and forth outside of that. And Spencer Rattler again looked pretty good. The connection to Rashid Shaheed, where he goes, that was the fastest touchdown apparently this year. Rashid Shaheed, the speedster, gets to the highest level. But like Rattler was playing well. They got good performance out of the running backs. The receivers are good. Like that offense is pretty good outside of the offensive line, which is good enough to hold up. I think they deserve the win, the Saints.
Yeah, they did. They played a good game, and Giants came out hot, and the Saints handled it in the dome, came back. Both teams 1-4 now. The 2 other games to just touch on in the 4:00 window, Lions took care of business against the Bengals, ended up 37-24. Didn't even feel that close. This is one of the games that was 28-3 after a while. The Bengals with a couple garbage timey type of touchdowns late, but the Lions offense was good. Bunch of turnovers again from Jake Browning and the Bengals, and good defensive effort from Jamar Chase, who finished with 3 tackles.
Jamar Chase, yeah. I was hoping for a 4th turnover from somebody so that Chase could, tie his catch
Does he
number
get,
with his tackle number,
does
but
he
then he
get
ended
player
up
of the
scoring
week?
touchdowns himself, and it didn't become a thing. But
6 catches, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 tackles. Come on,
an
Travis Hunter's
all-around
not doing
performance.
that. Yeah. Anyway, Lions moved to 4-1. Bengals now 2-3, and 3 straight losses where the offense was not great until the very end.
Travis Hunter could only dream of such a stat line.
I'm unleashing all my good takes here tonight, but the Bengals offense was so bad that Dan Campbell punted from the Bengals 41. From the 41 going in, right? This is like surrender punt territory. All the nerds are going to hate it. Mr. Aggressive Dan Campbell was punting on 4th and 6 from the 41, saying, yeah, we'll punt and play defense. We trust our D against this offense. So, yeah, it wasn't even that close.
No, I mean, this was another one where it was a beatdown, only a couple of weird scores out of nowhere. It turned it into a vaguely close game and an onside kick and stuff. Like, this was pretty conclusive.
Other significant one to touch on, Washington Commanders moved to 3-2. Chargers fall to 3-2, 27-10. And this was a 10-0 start for the Chargers. But Quentin Johnston fumble changed everything. Plus the punt return. The punt return to Ladd McConkey that got negated by but negated by a roughing in the end zone. I mean, just those 2 plays. Obviously, there's more game there, but those 2 plays changed the course of this entire game.
It really did. I mean, the Quentin Johnston thing, it was unfortunate. It was a really tough sort of hit that he got led into, where it was like a sandwich from both sides, really powerful hit from both ends, and the ball popped out. Like, you've got to hold on to that, but I understand why it came out. It's not, it's certainly not the most egregious fumble you're ever going to see from a player, but it was a huge swing. And then that sequence before halftime was nuts. Like, Washington punts the ball out of their own end zone. Ladd McConkey returns it for a touchdown. Instead, it's like, no, actually, it's roughing the kicker. So points are coming off the board from the Chargers, and we're extending the drive. So Washington doesn't even need to get rid of the ball. They keep the ball. They end up putting up points themselves. So in the sort of 3 things that could have, the Chargers could have had points. Well, then, okay, you're not getting the points, but you could at least get the ball. Nope. Instead, Washington's keeping the ball, and they put the points up before halftime. A massive sequence.
A 50-yarder from Jaden Daniels to Luke McCaffrey to literally flip the field. And then Washington was off to the races. They scored the last 27 points and looked good doing it. Defense stepped up. Chargers offensive line, they've got some issues. They're already banged up coming in. They had, linemen in and out of the lineup. So they've lost a little bit of luster over these last couple of weeks, the Chargers, after that 3-0 start.
I forget who made the tweet, but if you count Rashawn Slater as their number 1 option, they're down to their number 3 option at 3 separate positions on that offensive line. And that, that's curtains immediately.
Yeah, that's why I was throwing some credit at the Cowboys, right? Where every team that's down to 2nd and 3rd stringers, you can feel it. Like you could feel it with the Chargers, and the Cowboys feel like the one offense where they're at least still putting points on the board, looking explosive and dealing with it. So as always, we're live in between the 4 o'clocks and Sunday Night Football. We still have Patriots Bills tonight. We got Monday Night Football tomorrow night, and we have our 7 a.m. Check the Mic recap. So we hope you all join us for that. At least 3 hours of great fun, even though it's a short week. We'll make sure we give you the 3 hours plus. All right. That's it for the live reaction. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Check the Mic, week 5.